Hi.
Hi.
What do we have today?
We have yellow and white, sunflowers and chrysanthemums and waxflower.
Beautiful.
Happy spring.
It is, indeed. It's almost Easter already.
And we still have a little bit of raspiness due to the spring pollen,
Yes.
but we do what we have to do, don't we?
Indeed.
And Sinnett is doing what he has to do. Our last session was very interesting. Sinnett kind of got his butt spanked, and he deserved it. He was out of control. And we went over some of the things that he had been dealing with, and most of them were self-created. Biggest problem was that while he was living in India, he was in an entirely different environment. The Mahatmas were able to influence him easier in that different spiritual environment that existed there in 1883. But once he moved back to London, to the London scene, he's like, oh yeah, these are my people. And all of a sudden, he got really excited about, I can actually be part of London society now. That was foremost on his mind. And of course, his work with the Mahatmas is what made him famous. So he was hoping to expand that into a position in London society. We're going to cover today a little bit about what it means to be part of London society. In our last session, we finished up with letter number 126. So let's jump into a letter that in the book is one of 4 letters that came at the end of all of the other numbered letters. They were just lettered A, B, C, and D. But in the meantime, more research has shown us where some of them actually belong. This one letter, which was just letter B, actually belongs in this period. So we're going to read that first. This is a very short note that was determined through research, was received in London on July 18th, 1884. Just to give us the background, K.H. had excoriated Sinnett because, number one, he had been careless about how he treated Mohini while he was at his house. That was simply carelessness, so that wasn't a big sin on his part. But then he got angry at HPB and Olcott and was blaming them for his problems, insisting that it was because of them that he got scolded first by Moria and then second by K.H. So this all comes into play here. HPB and Olcott are handling it marvelously. It's Sinnett who is out of control. So this little short letter, B, which fits in right here, was one more in a bunch of letters that dealt with this whole situation because everything was coming to a climax.
Do you recall if Joy Mill's book or any of the other teachings on the Mahatma Letters has put these letters in the proper chronological order?
I don't think so. I think she just dealt with them at the end like the chronological edition did.
Even though that's not chronological.
Right. We've discovered a few errors, and this is all due to other people's investigations. So we owe them a huge favor for that. Without that, we would be adrift here.
We would. And at the same time, you may be the first to be seeing the sequence like this.
Yeah. So everybody builds,
Yeah.
What is this saying? I have stood on the shoulders of giants, and we all do. We all get a leg up because of what was done before us.
Oh, for sure.
So go ahead and read this letter B.
The right is on her side. Your accusations are extremely unjust, and coming from you, pain me the more. If after this distinct statement you still maintain the same attitude, I shall have to express my deep regret at this new failure of ours and, with all my heart, wish you better success with more worthy teachers. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
She certainly lacks charity, but indeed you lack discrimination. Regretfully yours, K.H.
And that's what he has been saying recently, that Sinnett severely lacks discrimination, discernment. He cannot see clearly, and it's his emotions that are clouding everything. He's angry, he's resentful, he is stressed out because he's trying to do something that he is ill fit for. Two things. He is, first of all, trying to become a chela in the midst of London society, and he's trying to be a member of London society instead of removing himself from that. That would be the more proper approach, I think, if he had the intention of becoming a real chela. Figure out how to do it like Mohini did. In the previous letter, K.H. pointed that out. You aren't able to do even what Mohini does, which is have a wife and family and other people that he supports and still be a chela.
The whole concept of, in air quotes, keeping up with the Joneses, as we sometimes say, that is antithetical to this path of spiritual expansion. If you have any inclination that you need to keep up with the Joneses, you're foundationally misguiding yourself. That's a huge red flag. I mean, if that's your concern, you're missing the whole point, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And K.H. has pointed out more than once that Europeans have one goal: appearances. As long as everything looks placid and acceptable on the surface, that's all that counts to them.
And please remember, we've said many times about how the chelas sometimes have the opposite appearance, and K.H. has even warned Sinnett, when you see him, one of the chelas who looked almost homeless, and he didn't care.
Exactly.
How opposite is that? One of our favorite authors, I.K. Timney, we quote him a lot when he talks about the ruthless stripping away of the ego, which is mandatory to walk this path. Keeping up with the Joneses and inserting yourself into high society isn't stripping away, it's caking on more ego. I think this is foundational and huge. And of course, it's not fun or sexy. It's not levitating or making a teacup appear, but that is the foundational thing. I hope we're remembering that. I think we've said it enough times that you are, but it was worth repeating again.
And that's how they teach. We're following their example as they repeat the same lessons over and over in different ways. And maybe the 50th time they say it, it may all of a sudden click. You never know which iteration is going to actually land.
And that's okay. That's okay. I've had countless experiences where I've heard something 50 times and then I'm like, oh, and I do get a little mad, like, Paul, why didn't you hear that 49 other times already? But that's okay. That's the way we are usually.
And we see people that we teach who say, I already know that.
But do you?
But if we looked at their life, and sometimes we know what their personal life is like, they don't know that.
That's hilarious. It's really funny that's funny.
It's like, you have heard it. Okay, I understand. You have heard it before, but you do not know it. And that's what they point out. Unless you experience this yourself and learn to discern which is important, which is not, discard stuff that is unimportant, but figure out what actually will change your life and then do what it takes to make that happen. The work comes then at that moment.
If K.H. said that to Sinnett, do what it takes to change your life. Stop worrying about how you're viewed by London society. He'd probably opt out. I mean, let's be honest.
He's doing everything possible to accommodate both.
Yeah.
And it's extremely stressful. We pointed this out several times.
Yeah.
Everything the Mahatmas do is based on energy conservation. They only have so much energy. And yes, they can accomplish incredible things with it, far more stupendous than what we can imagine. But they are limited. And so if they waste time on someone like Sinnett or other students, and they never know which one or ones are going to rise to the challenge. They don't. So they have to give each one the opportunity and then gauge the results as they go. And at some point, they most likely will opt out and say, I've done all I can. I cannot spend any more energy on this student. All right, let's read letter number 127. Now, this one is from HPB, the one that Sinnett has been complaining about, and even directly to her face. This was received in late July 1884.
So same month as the last note. My dear Mr. Sinnett, it is very strange that you should be ready to deceive yourself so willingly. I have seen last night whom I had to see, and getting the explanation I wanted, I am now settled on points I was not only doubtful about, but positively averse to accepting. The words in the first line are words I am bound to repeat to you as a warning, and because I regard you, after all, as one of my best personal friends. You've been deceiving and, in vulgar parlance, bamboozling yourself about the letter received by me yesterday from the Mahatma.
Now, herein lies the key. Remember how Sinnett has been talking about doubt and suspicion, all of the furies that he told Sinnett he was being assailed by? And this is exactly this attitude of not trusting, of being suspicious about people, and he's extremely suspicious about HPB.
The letter is from him, whether written through a chela or not. Now,
it's probably the one that we talked about, where he was being chastised. And I'm almost certain that's what it was, because he doesn't believe that KH would have said that.
Okay. The letter is from him, whether written through a chela or not, and perplexing as it may seem to you, contradictory and, quote, absurd, it is the full expression of his feelings, and he maintains what he said in it. It makes sense that he'd be referring to last session's letter.
Yeah, because that was a very severe letter for KH.
For me, it is surprisingly strange that you should accept as his only that which dovetails with your own feelings. That's crazy to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
And reject all that contradicts your own notions of the fitness of things. Well, we see organizations and religions and stuff do that all the time. They agree and promote the things that make them look good, but then they ignore or even discredit the things that they don't like. We do that all the time.
And Sinnett has received so many letters from KH where he is very friendly, very affectionate. And so in his mind, he says, that couldn't possibly be from KH. The old lady must have inserted stuff in there herself.
He wouldn't say that about me. Olcott has behaved like an ass. Wow. Really? She uses that word? Ass?
Well, yes. Oh, yeah, she did. And remember, it was probably the Buddha on wheels and that sort of stuff. And the fact that he dresses up in Indian garb.
And Olcott isn't trying to be humorous. He's not like
a
comedian.
No, he is just being himself.
He's quirky.
It's not pretense on his part. It's his adoration of the Mahatmas and emulating the way they do things.
He also probably marches to the beat of his own drum a little bit. He does more of what Sinnett should do, not care about what other people think.
Exactly. But Sinnett is the staunch conservative Englishman.
Yeah. All right, so Olcott has behaved like an ass, utterly devoid of tact. Yeah. That's the opposite of how the Englishmen act. Tact is highest priority.
Right.
He confesses it and is ready to say mea culpa before all the theosophists. What a good guy Olcott is. And it is more than any Englishman would be willing to do. God forbid they apologize for anything.
Yes, exactly. What? You're thinking I should apologize for something?
You should apologize for thinking that I should apologize.
Exactly. Do you know who I am?
And where I live in the townhouse I just rented.
Yeah, exactly.
The park that's in my backyard. And this is perhaps why, with all his lack of tact and his frequent freaks that justly shock your susceptibilities and mine too, heaven knows, going as he does against every conventionality, he is still so liked by the masters who care not for the flowers of European civilization.
Yeah, they've told him so many times, we don't care about your European sense of how things have to be and your propriety. That means nothing to us. We care about sincerity, about what is beneath the surface.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? So you just said something key. They care about what's beneath the surface. The Europeans care about what's on the surface.
Right.
That's hilarious. That's a very good metaphor.
Yes, it's that simple.
We don't care what you look like. We
take a pile of crap and put cake frosting and flowers on it and say, oh, well, that looks perfectly fine.
That is a very telling, very good analogy there. Wow. Had I known last night what I have learnt since, that you imagine, or rather force yourself to imagine, that the Mahatma's letter is not wholly orthodox and was written by a chela to please me, or something of the sort, I would not have rushed to you as the only plank of salvation. Things are getting dark and hazy. Oh, gosh. I have managed last night to get the Psychic Research Society rid of its nightmare, Olcott. What's that all about?
I'm not sure what she meant.
That society, though, we've heard of that before.
Well, that's the one that is investigating theosophy now.
There are some prominent figures in there.
Yes, we'll cover all of that. The Coulomb controversy is coming up very shortly here.
Okay. I may manage to get England rid of its bugbear, theosophy.
And what is a bugbear? It's their nemesis or their worst nightmare. In French, it would be called bête noire, something that antagonizes them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Theosophy. So theosophy is the nemesis of England because they want to do spiritual stuff and spiritualism.
Spiritualism, that's it. Almost all of the members of the Psychical Research Society are spiritualists, and many of them are theosophists. Two opposing camps here. At first, remember, HPB was defending spiritualism because the Mahatmas had the idea that it could be reformed to an extent that it could teach theosophy. That was a failure. So then they had to switch gears and point out the defects, which the spiritualists had no intention of correcting. They loved the fact that they are speaking with dead people, and they're not. So let's continue this.
If you, the most devoted, the best of all theosophists, really?
Well, he has certainly devoted a huge amount of time and money to do what he's doing.
If you, the most devoted, the best of all theosophists, are ready to fall victim to your own preconceptions and believe in new gods of your own fancy, then, notwithstanding all, theosophy has come too early in this country. Ooh. Let your London Lodge TS go on as it does. I cannot help it, and what I mean I will tell you when I see you. But I will have nothing to do with the new arrangement and retire from it altogether unless we agree to disagree no more. Yours, HPB.
Yes.
Wow.
So this was received in July. And right about this time is when a major change happened. Remember how in several previous sessions they had been talking about an inner group? Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? They formed an inner group. And we actually have the charter, and it's kind of interesting.
Wow. Where'd you find that?
It's actually in one of the books, the Letters from the Masters of Wisdom, first series, but it's also on the Theosophical Wiki website. And we'll put a picture of the actual contract. It was 22 people who signed it. And we're actually going to read what they did.
So the inner group was 22 people?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They wrote their own contract, or what I should say is the Arundales, Miss Arundale, Francesca, and her mother, Marianne Arundale, and a few other people wrote out this contract. And then 22 people signed it. Let's read that real quickly.
Sure.
And the strange thing is, they didn't put a date on it. So it was late July or early August, apparently, based on other documents that we have. So this is the contract that they wrote out.
In view of the recent resignation of Mr. Massey and the reason for which it was given, namely suspicion of the Mahatmas, and the inclination which has been shown by certain other members of the London Lodge to discredit the Eastern teachings and distrust its teachers, we, the undersigned members of the London Lodge, being convinced that no spiritual education is possible without absolute and sympathetic union between fellow students, desire to form an inner group.
So C.C. Massey, who a couple of years prior was on probation to become a chela, failed miserably, and now he's become a bitter enemy. One among many, one after another. When they fail, they don't just walk away. They're like, you're going to pay for this.
Jeez.
And he's one of them.
Taking the word religion in its broadest sense, and while leaving every member of the said group to follow his or her own theological system or creed.
And now there is something inserted by Moria. He inserted this in the document metaphysically.
As heretofore done in all the theosophical societies.
And then it continues.
We desire nevertheless to establish a bond of true brotherly union of such a nature as to realize those conditions, which we are convinced are unattainable in the London Lodge as it is constituted. Well, that's weird. That should mean that London Lodge needs to be reformed.
But they obviously are not ready for that. So their point of view is, we want to treat this seriously, and we can't do it if we have to deal in all of our public meetings with all of this discord. So we want a separate group where we just keep things among ourselves.
For this inner group, the Adepts,
which is the Holy of Holies, or the super secret part of the temple.
And that's what they're calling themselves,
yes.
Basically. For this inner group, the Adepts of the London Lodge, oh, interesting. Mm-hmm. We humbly crave the uncharted recognition of the Mahatmas, our beloved teachers, requesting them further to grant us special permission to form our own bylaws and choose our own council, and while remaining individually subject to the rules and bylaws of the London Lodge, the group as such to be independent of the London Lodge in its special work.
Mm-hmm.
Weird. The fundamental principle of the new group to be implicit confidence in the Mahatmas and their teaching and unswerving obedience to their wishes in all matters connected with spiritual progress.
Now, this goes hand in hand with the different points of view of Olcott and HPB. Olcott wanted an organization open to all people. Anybody could have any belief, as long as you believe in brotherhood. We're all one, we can all get together. But after trying that, it's quite obvious that that is kind of a dead end. Okay, it's like a mutual admiration society, but what gets accomplished?
Isn't that
not
what
much.
the TS is now, though? Okay. No, but by definition, though, like in the, I'm not sure what a charter or mission statement. It's everybody's welcome.
It is.
Creed,
It
caste,
is.
color, sex.
It is. And
Yeah.
it is sort of self-defeating.
Interesting.
HPB's idea was that it should be a recruitment camp for future chelas and future adepts. But you can't have both.
There is a way to do an open-minded group, but also have the same. What are they missing, though? Because Olcott's vision, I think, could work, but I think maybe people are coming in who don't subscribe to the three objects.
It is not just that. It's how far they're willing to go to do the self-transformation.
So we need a fourth object.
Well, no, their third object is to discover the hidden powers
that's
in man.
very easy. I mean, that's very loose.
It is. So basically, you can have both, but only if you have a group, which would be chelas, who are handpicked. We get to say, yeah, I want to apply for the job. I want to be one of you. They say, well, we'll put you through the basic training. We'll test you and see whether or not we want you. And then 90% fail, or 99%, or 99.9% fail. And maybe only the one or two here and there actually get chosen.
Then your membership gets decimated. Now you have 3% of what you had then at that. I mean, gosh, that frustrates me. What if the fourth object was something that Timely would say? Be willing to work on your ego and turn in a progress report every month on how you're doing. Because that would weed out most of them, right? No, I don't want to join that group. I'll have to do that.
Well, yeah, but how big is your group going to be?
Well, how big is it going to be if everyone fails? I mean,
this is a major problem today.
Yes.
Because guess what? The Theosophical Society in membership is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And fewer people, percentage-wise in the world, even know of it.
Is it safe to say that you like the idea of the main group and then the inner group? That's the
Absolutely.
way. Okay.
It's the only way you can do it.
Okay.
No, we absolutely need the Theosophical Society.
No, of course we do. It's just the main membership doesn't have the requirement to make the progress, though.
Here's the question, though. How do you maintain these enormous and costly properties around the world?
Yeah.
That becomes the biggest bugbear of the Theosophical Society. How do we keep the millions and millions of dollars flowing in if we've only got a few thousand members? It's a huge problem. So my own opinion is that needs to be greatly reduced down to something manageable in size. The main thing they need to do is conserve all of the archives and the teachings and the things that are very important. Again, it's discernment. What is important, what is not? Do we need this gigantic property to be who we are? Or is it okay just to be a very small organization as far as physical assets and put our work and our efforts into what is important, the actual teachings?
I guess the concern is, where do people gather? But in this day and age with digital stuff, you can do it virtual.
In this day and age, it's online. It's not in a physical building.
Is it important to gather physically in brick and mortar locations?
My own personal opinion is that I do not like the social aspect of theosophy. I do not like going to meetings. I do not like going to conventions. To me, it's a waste of time. Most people love it, absolutely love it. I do not. That's my own personal opinion, and there are 9 out of 10 people who would disagree with me.
Yeah. Continuing along, I'll read the last sentence again. The fundamental principle of the new group to be implicit confidence in the Mahatmas and their teaching, and unswerving obedience to their wishes in all matters connected with spiritual progress. It's interesting that they say that right after they just got done saying we want to make our own everything.
They're kind of stretching here, but they wanted to get something down.
NB.
That's Latin, nota bene. Please note.
Okay. Should, however, there be a sincere conviction on the part of any member that he or she cannot conscientiously render this unswerving obedience in all matters of spiritual progress, such member may withdraw from the inner circle with the assurance and knowledge that the imputation of dishonorable conduct will not be charged against him or her.
Now, HPB signed the contract herself first, and then the Mahatmas signed it. So KH, first of all, addressed this note about people being able to withdraw before he signed it. So what did KH say?
So he inserts, provided he or she does not make any part of the teaching public by word or letter without special permission from the undersigned, KH.
Right, meaning both of them, KH and Moria.
Okay.
So he signed it, KH, and then
Like
this
a
is
PS.
the members.
Is a PS from
Right,
HPB?
right.
Finally, in submitting this prayer to our revered masters, we earnestly request them, if it meets with their approval, to confirm it with their signatures and to consent to continue their teachings as heretofore, so long as there shall remain one faithful member in this group.
All right, and then they both accepted the contract. KH wrote,
Approved. The covenant is mutual. It will hold good so long as the actions of the undersigned are accordant with the pledges implied in the fundamental principle of the group and by them accepted, KH, and then approved by Moria.
so they both approved the contract.
Do you think there was some communication that went on behind the scenes between HPB and KH before they wrote this down and submitted it? Or do you think this is the first time KH and Moria saw this? Was boom, here it is, and then
They're aware of everything.
I'm
So
sure.
when they were first conceptualizing the idea and then writing it out, they already knew about that.
So it's not like they were blind. I mean, they
No. They've
Okay.
been watching this all along. First of all, KH's entire focus right now is on the London Lodge because this is the do or die of the Theosophical Society at this point.
What was happening in New York at the time? Because that's where Olcott was from. Is there anything in?
Well,
going on there?
remember that Judge at this point had come to London.
But he's based in New York too.
Yes, and they all along had been waiting for more teachings. They're like, we need something to teach.
Where were the other main centers? Of course, India. But where?
India, but they all were desperate for teachings. Other than Isis Unveiled and the two books by Sinnett and the Theosophist magazine, that's what they had. That's all the teachings that they had.
Do we have the 22 names?
We do. I didn't put them all down, but I will tell you that Sinnett and his wife were among the last three to sign it. And I don't know if that's significant or not, if they were hesitating or maybe they were just the last ones to get to it. I don't know.
And surely all the other prominent names that we've been...
Some of them we've heard of. The two Cooper Oakleys we haven't heard about, but they become very important in this whole story. There were also the two Schmeikens. Remember Hermann Schmeiken, who painted the portraits of KH and Moria?
Oh.
They were living in London at the time. They are on there. Several other couples, husband and wife. But Sinnett and the Arundels are among the most prominent of the ones who are Theosophists.
What about the woman who lost the election? What was her name again?
Mrs. Kingsford.
Kingsford.
She formed a new lodge.
So she didn't break away, and go elsewhere.
But here's the problem. Too many members were saying, well, we want to be a member of her lodge, but we all want to be a member of the London Lodge too. And so the founders had to set a precedence and say, no, you can only be a member of one lodge. You can't have double membership. You don't get two votes in the Theosophical Society at large. You only can be a member of one or the other. And so that created problems, and she formed her own society simply called the Hermetic Society and turned in her charter.
Oh, so her lodge was dissolved?
It was dissolved, and the Theosophists, a few of them, like C.C. Massey, I'm assuming supported her because he has now resigned from Theosophy. He's like, I'm done with this. In the midst of all of this folderol that's going on, I want to remind our listeners of something that happened way back in February 1882, a letter that K.H. wrote to Sinnett when he was stressed out and unsure of himself.
Your strivings, perplexities, and forebodings are equally noticed, good and faithful friend. In the imperishable record of the masters, you have written them all. There are registered your every deed and thought for, though not a chela, or even a protege, as you understand the term, still you have stepped within the circle of our work. You have crossed the mystic line which separates your world from ours. And now, whether you persevere or not, whether we become later on still more living and real entities or vanish out of your mind like so many dream fictions, you are virtually ours. Your hidden self has mirrored itself in our Akasha. Your nature is yours, but your essence is ours. Interesting.
So that was in February of 1882. And now Sinnett is in great turmoil. But whether or not he remembered this promise, I don't know. Nevertheless, it's virtually saying that whether you fail or not this time, you will succeed at some point. Obviously not in that lifetime. But you have gone so far along this path that your higher self knows. And there is no way that you are not going to be one of us at some point. So I hope that he remembers this. The crazy thing to me is that he had all of these letters with him in London, and he would sometimes show them to people and even let them borrow some of them. Mohini and Laura Holloway we'll talk about later, but they used those letters as the basis for their book. Other people, other theosophists read parts of those letters. Why Sinnett didn't spend more time reading them himself, I will never understand. In my position today, if I were he, I would be delving through these and trying to figure out what I missed. But he's got so many things on his mind that rereading all of this pile of letters was the last thing in his mind, I'm assuming. Now we're going to cover another letter. It was to HPB from KH, but containing advice for both Sinnett and Mrs. Holloway. This was in July 1884 also. Like so many of these letters, we can only somewhat put the date based on the happenings that are referred to in the letter.
A lot was happening in that month. July, that was a big month, huh?
Yes, and that's why, as I say, this is the crux of the entire Mahatma Letters. Yeah. Everything is coming together right now and boiling up, and there's an eruption of sorts.
I reply that, repulsive as our Asiatic way of looking at things may seem to Mr. Sinnett, Upasika was right in declaring to him that such was the wish of both her master and myself that the Lily pamphlet should be elaborately answered.
Lily, remember, was a man who wrote a book about Buddhism, but he wrote a negative pamphlet regarding the Theosophical Society, and KH wanted it answered.
This must be done by neither Mr. Sinnett nor anyone else but the London Lodge. Unless our Asiatic advice is followed as speedily and effectively as possible, and both worthies, Lily and Wilde, exposed, the one as to his ignorance, the other as to his malice, let not anyone of the society complain of the masters leading them, or allowing them to be led into disagreeable complications. Mrs. Holloway saw clearly what was shown to her, namely that a new pamphlet was being prepared by Mrs. Kingsford, who is in friendly union with Wilde and Lily, to throw as much opprobrium and ridicule upon the society as they possibly can.
So she's also intent on destroying the Theosophical Society. We've got Hume, we've got many members of the Society for Psychical Research, we've got C.C. Massey, we've got Mrs. Kingsford. They're like, you made me look bad, now we're going to make you look bad.
Mrs. Holloway sees better than she hears. She has either to allow herself to be developed gradually and listen to the advice of our chelas, or to give up the thing, which would be a pity. She does not discriminate well between the things shown to her by chelas sent and the transferences of ideas from the mind of the one she sits for, and which of course reflect that one's personal prejudices, preconceptions, and inherent likes and dislikes.
Yes, this is true for any medium. They reflect off of what's in your mind. And that's not what a Chela or a Mahatma is trained to do. They are trained to see clearly, but they can only do that if they got rid of their ego. All of these psychics who still have an ego do not see clearly. They do not. They still have a lot of training to do.
She is a very impressionable sensitive, as well as a born clairvoyant. She's been playing with you recently by acting the medium for a bhoot in this house, which is a ghost.
Yes.
Spirit.
It's an elementary, the remains of someone who died, different from an elemental.
Warn her of the danger to her no less than to others, and warn Mr. Sinnett. The, quote, unsatisfied desire in this case is a bad one, and he's talking about the bhoot, the spirit, right? Is a bad one, begotten of selfishness and bigotry, and to encourage a hope that it might be gratified would be to add to, not curtail, the being's time in Kama Loka.
So there you go. Anyone who messes with one of these elementaries is adding to their time in Kama Loka and making their existence more difficult.
I love that he says that very clearly there. Ghosts, I'm just going to break it, like simmer it down. Ghosts are people that have died that are in the Kama Loka phase of the Bardo period, the after death.
It's the remnants of that.
Well, no, it's not the person
it's
itself.
It's the lower part of that.
Right. So ghosts, what I should have said, the person is actually in Kama Loka, even though there may be a spirit lingering around in the house, but the spirit portion of the person is not the actual person.
It would be the equivalent of us during our sleep phase. That consciousness is not you. Your higher self is actually kind of removed at that point.
You mean the consciousness that we have when we're dreaming?
Right.
Not our physical body and not our soul, but the consciousness.
Right. So how conscious are you when you're sleeping?
Right.
If you remember your dreams, they're probably very convoluted and don't make a whole lot of sense.
Usually, yeah.
Same thing with these, but that is a part of that person.
And there's such a strong energy there, and he says it's a bad one. It's an unsatisfied desire. Somehow it becomes maybe visible, maybe not visible to everybody, but it can be in the house because there's something strong. Not everyone has that. That's why not everyone becomes a ghost. So more or less.
remember, for example, people who die by accident or by war or by murder or by suicide, they spend what would normally be the rest of their physical life in Kama Loka, much longer than most people do. And this kind of vivifies that. Even if the person is moving along through Kama Loka, if they're able to contact a medium and it's like, oh, I've got a physical body I can work with again. And they can create additional karma.
And prolonging their time in Kama Loka, which they probably wouldn't do if they knew that. It's almost like just instant, it is the same thing we feel when we want instant gratification. We want to eat the whole bag of chips because it tastes good, or eat the unhealthy food. Instantly, okay, maybe it feels good instantly, but there's no other good that comes out of it but that. Same thing with this.
Yes. So Theosophists should never mess with an astral entity, a ghost, or an elementary.
Mm-hmm. Besides doing a perhaps irreparable harm to the innocent child and the fond parent, the loving grandmother.
So there are other people involved with this entity, and it's going to affect them.
Confirm to Mohini what by direct impression he ought to have learnt from me. The bad magnetism he is constantly collecting, though thrown off as rapidly, is much in the way, that he did right to try to stop Mrs. H's meddling in this business.
So remember, Mohini and Mrs. Holloway are working together to try to write this book about the doctrine that the Mahatmas have in mind to produce. It's kind of a test case for what HPB is going to be writing. They didn't end up producing a very good product, but they learned a lot in the process.
Mohini is right and Sinnett wrong. Order him also to resume their writing seances for the book here.
Seances meaning sessions.
Instead of Mr. Sinnett's.
So the atmosphere at Mr. Sinnett's townhouse is not good, and it's affecting their trying to write at that location, get them out of there.
Why should we be compelled to divide the current between the two places, instead of focusing it in one and to neutralize two sets of local magnetism?
So stop going back and forth. It's difficult enough for us to focus on one and to mitigate the influences in that one.
Makes sense.
The worst influences are at Sinnett's house. Get out of there and just work at Miss Arundale's house.
Got it. There are many things done and said lately I do not like. He doesn't say that very often. He doesn't say, I like this, I don't like that.
No, but they're probably trying to decide just how to proceed at this point. Yeah. Everything is going wrong on multiple fronts here, so they've got to try to figure out what to do. And remember, all along, they allow all of these people to make numerous mistakes. Why? Because that's how they learn.
Yeah.
You learn from your mistakes. They will not wade in and say, no, you're doing this wrong. You're going to create major problems for yourself. No, they just sit back and say, ooh, let's see how this turns out.
That's actually really good. And the fact that they don't get too involved, like we have to remember that they're nowhere near London physically, and they don't let themselves get attached to any outcome. Like they're not invested, they're not involved. They're cool. Like, well, that's the way to do it.
And they've said more than once, everything is as it should be.
Right.
Because of karma. We are all creating karma.
It's extremely hard to do that. Most people want to micromanage and get invested personally. Like if they succeed, I'm going to feel accomplished too. That's not how they operate.
We do it in other people's lives too. We say, oh, you poor thing, look how you're suffering. If you would just do this and this and this, everything would be fine. And they're like, go right back to what they've been doing before, because guess what? They need that experience.
Mm-hmm. There are many things done and said lately I do not like. The suggestions made by Olcott by various persons, members and non-members, that you and he should have a reception to which many who are not yet within the society, yet have a certain interest and curiosity to learn about it, should be heeded. They echo a considerable popular feeling, and no agency favorable to its expansion should be neglected while you two are in England. I am indeed grieved to find that some among the best seem to want to undervalue it, and to imagine any plausible explanations for our sending you, especially H. Olcott, here. The fact is that the presence of the founders is palpable and a necessary proof of the existence of the parent society, and has had a good effect, one that entered into our calculations before giving orders for the journey. Excellent as are many individual members, superior as they may be in talent, education, or character to both of you, they are not the founders. None other than yourselves will ever be our chief recognized agents, nor have they given in personal sacrifices and an undivided absorbing devotion to our cause the same pledges of loyalty as Olcott has.
And he signed it K.H. This is not part of the Mahatma Letters in the book, but it is background information that is so important to understand here. We're trying to show just how intense this whole situation is. If you read only the Mahatma Letters book and don't put in any of this additional content, it won't make nearly as much sense.
Where was this from again? This is from KH to HPB, but where was this found?
It's one of the Mahatma Letters to other individuals.
Okay.
So it is on the theosophical.wiki website. And there are many other letters on that website. I hope that any serious student will go to that theosophical.wiki website and go to the Mahatma Letters section. There's a portal. And in addition to just the letters that are in the book, the Mahatma Letters to A.P. Sinnett, there are letters to other chelas, potential chelas. And all of them are extremely interesting.
Now, were you aware of this letter?
I did kind of stumble on it because when they started talking about Mrs. Holloway, I looked on the Theosophical Wiki website to see if there were other letters to her. And there were. There are several letters to her.
Can those be searched by date also, maybe? Because like July 1884, this is that time, this is that month.
Actually, they are very well documented. I think most of them do have a date on them, if I remember. But
pretty cool.
Go take a look at that, please.
No, we'll just let you. No,
very enlightening.
We'll just let you do it. I'm just playing around.
It's tempting to do that, and most people have so many other things to do that.
Well, thank you for doing that. That's incredible. Another reason why our work here is like so cool, so valuable.
And not everyone is a reader and a researcher like what I do. Obviously, there are numerous chelas, I don't claim to be one, who have other talents completely separate from history or any of these things that we present in our sessions here. Yeah. So there are any number of things that can contribute to the work of the Mahatmas. Don't ever get the feeling that you're in competition with somebody. Well, they can only deal with so many chelas, and so I want to push that one out of the way so that I can be one of them. It doesn't work like that. They work very different from a corporation where you have to fight and knock people out to get to the top of it. That isn't how it works at all. This is the complete opposite. You work to show how well you work within a group of individuals and what you can contribute with no ego involved, none. If you still have ego, you're not even a candidate. Okay, now with all of that background information in place, let's continue with letter number 128 from the actual book. Again, this was received sometime in late summer of 1884.
And this is from KH to Sinnett again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good friend, When our correspondence first began, there was no idea at the time of any publications being issued on the basis of the replies you might receive. You continued asking questions at random, and the answers were given at different times to disjointed queries, and, so to speak, under a semi-protest, the answers were necessarily imperfect, often from different standpoints. Oh, interesting. We're revisiting this thing.
Yes, because he, now that he's been put on notice, is wondering, maybe I need to go through all of these letters that I've received and just publish the letters.
He said that? Sinnett
To
said
himself, obviously. And then he obviously approached KH about it.
When the publication of some of these were permitted for the occult world, it was hoped that among your readers, for this would have been impossible, would be as near an approach to it as could be made by a non-initiate.
A non-initiate, okay. Let's see what...
Now, an initiate equals Chela, right?
Let's continue.
Kind of. But the results have proved somewhat disastrous.
Exclamation point.
We tried an experiment, and it sadly failed. Which experiment is he referring to there?
Well, the experiment of working with Sinnett and Hume.
So he's saying the whole thing is, okay, all right, wow.
And the whole experiment is getting the teachings out.
I wouldn't think that Sinnett would understand what he means by that. It sadly failed. I doubt Sinnett is like, oh, he means me. Do you think he would think that?
They've been looking for anyone. So they're putting all of their attention into Sinnett right now. Yeah. Hume failed. Numerous other people have failed. Yeah. They're still trying to find one who has some clairvoyant abilities that they can communicate with easier. Sinnett isn't that candidate.
Right.
He's not very receptive.
Now we see that only those who have passed at least their third initiation are able to write upon those subjects comprehensively.
What? Third initiation?
Okay, which subject specifically do we know?
The doctrine. Any of it. In order to write about it comprehensively, a Chela must have passed the third initiation. This is the first time that we are hearing about numbered initiations.
Right. He's not really even mentioned that too much before. It's just Chela versus non-Chela.
In the 1910s and 1920s, Theosophists at that point put a tremendous amount of emphasis on who had passed which initiations. There was the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth initiation that they talked about. The fifth being a Mahatma, an adept. The fourth being what they called an arhat. As we've learned going through these, the Mahatmas don't see it quite that way. As we found out, when you pass your fourth initiation, which is the arhat, then you are, in a sense, an adept. When you pass the fifth, you are a full adept.
So KH is probably fourth. Or
yes, he is at least fourth, and he's on the verge of being what we would call a Chohan. So they don't reveal everything about that, and they want it that way.
I wonder if KH regretted saying that here, because he opened up that gigantic can of worms, didn't he, with Sinnett?
Well, I don't think that's where it came from. Well, it actually did. It did because later we'll find out that Leadbeater, who's been visiting Sinnett quite often at this point and reading many of these letters, later, a few years later, would be living with him in a different house with Sinnett.
Oh, Leadbeater lived with Sinnett?
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
For a couple of years.
But aren't most of these letters confidential? Or they're not confidential. So KH really wouldn't care if Sinnett shares these letters?
If they're with chosen people. Okay. He didn't want them just published.
Being published, right.
Yeah, so anyway, let's talk about third degree initiate. In my understanding, And remember, I've said there are minor initiations and there are major initiations.
I think many people might not even know what an initiation is.
Well, we've talked about it before, and an initiation, as we learned from Taimni, is when one of these Mahatmas, one of these adepts, touches someone psychically.
In a meaningful way, with a Shakti pot, or a transference of a lot of energy, or something, a transference of something, right? Or a gift, a blessing.
Yes.
I love how you said, I never thought of it as a blessing before, but that makes perfect sense.
So when Eckhart Tolle received that Shakti pot at some point in his life, I think he was around 29 or 30, something like that.
Everything changed.
Yeah. And as he mentioned, and other people have mentioned, there's an immediate, noticeable change in consciousness. Like from here, one instant, and an instant later, up to this level. And it's shocking. But it decreases. For some people, it may last only a month or two, or a few months. It may last a year. The goal is to make it last as long as possible. Each one of these initiations entails an experience like this. If anyone tells you you passed an initiation and you didn't notice this, it was not an initiation. It's a fake one.
And it might not be something that you would readily recognize at first. This is a cool concept that I've learned from you. You might not even be a yogi. You might not even be what you consider to be a spiritual person, at least for the first or maybe second. Someone in a completely different walk of life can have this happen. Mm-hmm. You don't have to go to yoga classes or go to meditation groups or study these letters to have it happen. Humankind is all available for these experiences, right? Am I speaking correctly? Yes. So it might not be like what he probably is a higher initiate, I would think, Eckhart Tolle. But the first one, maybe the second one, might be something a little bit manifesting differently in your life. Who knows exactly how it would manifest for everybody? It wouldn't be the exact same thing.
This phenomenon has even been described by a few psychiatrists in the 1970s, I believe. They called it cosmic consciousness.
But it wouldn't always be that, right? I mean, like a construction worker who's a good person, I mean, right?
It makes no difference your field of work or your enterprise. It's about your purity and your willingness to train yourself and to accept new teachings and new ways of looking at things.
I mean, it could be a proponent of health practices in third world countries or something, where this individual who's doing this isn't even religious or spiritual, but they could be touched and they could have some type of inspiration to go start the thing or to further the thing they're doing. It doesn't have to be something that looks like a spiritual ritual or something. And if it does, it probably isn't this.
But this is what I was referring to earlier, where I said that they have to do the recruiting. They find somebody who is impressionable and who has the right purity of mind and give them that opportunity and then watch to see what they do with it. So it is a test also. Third initiation would be someone, not Mohini. Mohini isn't an initiate, not a third degree initiate. Not Olcott, he's not a third degree initiate. It is HPB, she's at least a third degree initiate. And I believe she passed the third degree of initiation in 1875 when she went through that horrible experience in Philadelphia. That was when, after she had gone through that, the Mahatmas were able to actually use her and interact with her at any time. Her purity was such that they could actually inhabit her body after that. So that's the type of individual who would be able to understand and teach these principles, this doctrine that they're trying to get out to the world. It's not somebody who learns it academically.
The reason why we're talking about this now is because he's being specific. He says a third degree, and I wonder if maybe Moria kind of slapped his hand for like being that specific, because that causes people to be in competition then. Oh, I'm third degree, you're not. And like, I can teach this. And I wonder, do you think he shouldn't have said that? I wonder.
He has hinted before that he did say some things in the letters that he realized later were more than what he should have revealed. So maybe that's one of them.
I love this topic because it's fascinating. I know we shouldn't spend much more time on it. Is it safe to assume that for many people, a first initiation might not even be noticeable to yourself? You wouldn't even know that you're...
No, okay. It's not possible at all.
This is what I was trying to say earlier. It's not going to look like you're given a chalice of gold and you're walking up to an altar and sipping with... It's not a ritual. It's something that you probably don't even know happens. But over the course of your life, whenever it happens, things will be changing, and you could be perceptive enough to realize it. But the first initiation, you probably don't even know it happened. Maybe not even the second one, perhaps.
No.
The second one you would know?
You would know something happened. The first one even.
Oh, so you're saying that you would most definitely know it would happen?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
there is no way that you would not know. I know of people, and personally know some people, and they never described it as an initiation, but they describe exactly that. A jump in consciousness.
Even the first initiation.
Absolutely.
You would know something happened, like profound change immediately.
Yes. That's why I was saying, anyone who says, I'm going to confer an initiation on you, and then the next day you are exactly like you were before, that was a fake initiation. Okay, and besides, the Mahatmas aren't going to announce it to you. Oh, I'm preparing you for your first initiation, your seventh initiation, your whatever initiation. That's bogus. Sorry, that's what it is.
You mean I can't post a story on Instagram about it?
No, and in fact, the people that I know are very reluctant to even share that.
Right. It's sacred. It's something very special.
They are not going to just say that to anybody. And even if they do it reluctantly and don't want to talk too much about it. But it happens instantaneously based on what I've heard.
Okay.
One person described it as it happened in Riverside Park in New York City, going from one step on a stairway to the next step. What you may not know is that you may not know anything about theosophy or what this even involved, but you absolutely do know that something happened that changed your consciousness drastically.
It could be just like profound inspiration to make a change, something like that.
And it's not just instantaneous and then the next day you're back to normal. No, that does not happen either.
Mm-hmm. And this idea of it fading, I would imagine that in the later initiations, it doesn't fade. You're a changed person. Your consciousness is permanently changed.
That's exactly right. And even Taimni pointed out that the whole goal is to make that your permanent state. This is a gift. I'm showing you what you can achieve. And it will last for a while, but if you want it to continue, you're going to have to make some drastic changes in yourself.
Would it be safe to assume that there are satoris that are not initiations?
I suppose it's possible. Let's continue.
So you have to be a third degree initiate in order to write on these topics that we're teaching. A. Herbert Spencer would have made a mess of it under your circumstances. Mohini is certainly not quite right. In some details, he is positively wrong, but so are you, my old friend, though the outside reader is none the wiser for it, and no one so far has noticed the real vital errors in esoteric Buddhism and man fragments of a forgotten history, nor are they likely to.
So both of the books, and I don't know if they had published it at this point, Man, Fragments of a Forgotten History, but apparently it was either completely written or mostly written and had been shared at least with Theosophists. But there are errors in both of them, he's saying.
We can give no further information on the subjects already attempted by you and have to leave the facts already communicated to be woven into a consistent and systematic philosophy by the Chelas at headquarters. The Secret Doctrine... Wow, he's using the words The Secret Doctrine.
This is the book that HPB is going to be writing.
Right, but have we heard him say the words The Secret Doctrine yet in like italics?
They've used it more like a potential, but now they've decided on that title for sure.
Oh, okay.
In fact, they were originally going to release it monthly, one chapter per month.
Interesting.
And it was going to be a serial rather than a book.
Interesting. The Secret Doctrine will explain many things and set straight more than one perplexed student.
It's probably going to perplex more people than it will set straight.
Now, he's already explained what that is, what the Secret Doctrine is, because he doesn't really say what it is.
They do know. Sinnett knows because HPB has been commissioned at this point already to write it.
Okay. Therefore, to put before the world all the crude and complicated materials in your possession in the shape of old letters, in which, I confess, much was purposely made obscure, and he said that many times, would only be making confusion even more confusing, which is why reading the Mahatma Letters doesn't always produce any type of realizations. Some here and there.
No, but Sinnett's desperate at this point because he's seeing his opportunities just kind of fade away before his eyes.
He's smart. Doesn't he realize what he needs to do? He's just not willing, but maybe he's not that smart. But he has to kind of realize what's going on here. He's like, I need to make some big changes that I'm not willing to make. So, yeah.
I'm not sure he's sorting it out yet.
Okay.
He lacks discernment.
I mean, the last couple letters were very direct.
Yes, but how do you develop discernment without getting rid of ego?
Yeah.
I don't think he has grasped that yet.
Wow. Okay. Make the confusion even more confusing. Well, I mean, the Secret Doctrine didn't really help them. But it is nice to have a book with everything up to this point in it.
Yes.
It's funny, just a real quick side note, how he says earlier, you got to be a third degree initiate to write upon those subjects comprehensively. Okay, comprehensively means totally.
Yes.
Not understandably, though. He doesn't say that.
Both.
He means both. Okay.
Yes.
I guess to him, Secret Doctrine was as understandable as it was going to get at that point.
Yes, and if you have to be a third degree initiate
to write it,
you also have to be a third degree initiate to understand it.
It shows my level.
Put two and two together.
That shows my level. Here I am thinking, oh yeah, whatever.
Yeah, so we're not there yet. We're still floundering.
That's funny. Okay, instead of doing any good to yourself and others, it would only place you in a still more difficult position, bring criticism upon the heads of the, quote, masters, and thus have a retarding influence on human progress and the TS. Wow.
So it would actually do the opposite.
Why would it go backwards? Because people would get more fired up and more degraded into their emotions.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Teach me how to levitate. You can't teach me? I'm going somewhere else. Like, okay. Huh. Hence, I protest most strongly against your new idea. All right. So, in other words, don't publish the letters. Okay. So, was it sacrilege that we published them?
We didn't publish them.
The Mahatma Letters book is published.
Well, I didn't publish.
No, I mean we, meaning the modern world who published them. Like, okay, the TS or which whatever.
No, Sinnett left the letters to his executor, who was a woman, Maud Hoffman, an actress, and she apparently made arrangements with Mr. Barker to have them published after Sinnett died. So I don't know if Sinnett gave that direction to her. He never said. I'm just glad we actually have them. And I think at this distance in time, 140 years, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be out in the public.
When were they first made public?
1923.
Do you think KH would have been okay with it at that point?
I think so. That was 40 years after they started communicating.
See, we're using our discernment here. And I'm glad that publishers use their discernment. I mean, I'm glad we have them too. But we have a clear instruction to not do it. I'm glad we use discernment. See, things are not black and white. And if there's karma that the publisher is going to receive, I guess that's the way it is.
Yes. And we don't have much of anything that came after the death of HPB.
Yeah.
So whatever we can make of what was already given out during her lifetime, I'm all in favor of digesting it as much as possible.
Of course, I am too. I'm a little concerned that we have a clear directive from KH not to do it. But I can't see the harm in it.
I don't either. No. And I also don't see the harm in investigating the lives of the theosophists who were given the opportunity.
Yeah. It's learning for us.
Some people get very upset because those are like icons to them, like they pray to them. And if anyone disses their hero, they get very upset.
Yep.
That is not searching for the truth. If some of those people had real failings, I want to know about them. I want to know why they were not a third-degree initiate. What prevented them? Maybe that can help me avoid some of those problems.
This is actually a very good point, and this is practical. Just this morning, I somehow stumbled upon a channel. I love watching, Terry and I both watch several content creators on YouTube. I found a new guy, I can't remember his name, but he loves analyzing, funny enough, South Park episodes that talk about religions. Now, this is kind of extreme, but these guys that wrote South Park, or that are behind the creations, they've had death threats, they've had attacks, because these guys who create the cartoon South Park have made a little fun of the Buddha, of Jesus, of Mormonism, of Scientology. And like you just said, Terry, if your hero is dissed in any way or made to look bad, you might drive an Abrams tank over to their office and threaten to shoot it, blow it up or something. But maybe you didn't even know something about the religion that you so proudly practice your whole life. Maybe you would like to know some of the details. Just as one quick example, there was a statistic, and you probably know this already, but you may not, that most Mormons don't know the story of Joseph Smith and his golden tablets until they saw the episode of South Park.
You mean he did actually look in a hat and read a stone?
Or a seeing stone or whatever. But I don't know how they documented or how they polled people, but a majority of Mormons did not know that about their own religion until they saw the South Park episode.
And what do they say later? Oh, we knew that all along. That's nothing new. It's interesting how revelations are handled by different people.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry for digressing so much. It's just we want to make these relevant and practical, and we can learn from studying the lives or studying things from a secular fashion instead of just being inside the echo chamber that we find ourselves in all the time. Okay. Hence, I protest most strongly against your idea. Okay. Leave the task of avenging you to the Secret Doctrine.
Yeah, so don't worry about avenging yourself. Let our new experiment avenge you.
Okay. Do you think it did?
For the most part, yeah.
Okay.
He got most of it right. He got very angry when he found out that there were some errors in his book. But he didn't accept that. He tried to claim that HPB must have led him astray, and she changed something.
KH approved his publications.
He did, yes, but he also said that he did not read everything word for word.
Okay. My letters and this is KH again, my letters must not be published in the manner you suggest, but on the contrary, if you want to save DK, Jwal the trouble, copies of some should be sent to the literary committee at Adyar, so that with the assistance of S.T. Krishnamacharya, DK, Subbarao, and the secret committee from which HPB was purposely excluded by us to avoid new suspicions and slander, they might be able to use the information for achieving the object for which the committee was started, as explained by Damodar in the letter written by him under orders. Wait, what the heck? Wait, so what's this secret committee? Did we hear about that before?
No, and I really don't know who is on that, but
HPB was excluded, but that's some people in Adyar to achieve the object for which the committee was started.
I guess if it's secret, that's why we don't know anything about it.
Right. But he's suggesting that this committee might be able to use some information from the letters to get it out.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
They're starting another experiment, too.
Exactly.
Maybe.
They never stop, ever.
That's great. It is neither new Kittle developments that I seek to avoid, nor criticism directed against my personality, which indeed can hardly be reached. But I prefer to try to save you and the society from new troubles, which would be serious this time.
Like it hasn't been already, but I guess it could be even worse.
Wow. The letters, in short, were not written for publication or public comment on them, but for private use, and neither Moria nor I will ever give our consent to see them thus handled. Oh gosh, I feel sort of bad now about having all these letters published.
Maybe we should pull all of our content off of YouTube. What do you think?
But he says he doesn't want to see them.
All right. Well, that'll be your job to destroy all of them.
No, I need to access my discernment.
Okay.
But I don't want to make any rash decisions here.
Maybe pray about it.
Yeah. As regards your first letter, what first letter would this be? Very first letter?
No, this is just recent.
Okay. As regards your first letter, DK has been instructed to attend to it. In such delicate matters, I am still less competent to give advice than to satisfy aspiring chelas of the, quote, L.C. Holloway sort. I am afraid that poor dear Mrs. Holloway is showing her white teeth and would hardly be found now a charming companion.
Ooh, so this clairvoyant that they had so much hope invested in is turning out not to work out so well, and she's now being offended, apparently. So she's showing her fangs.
Oh, gosh. Under instructions, Olcott wrote a letter to Finch, which gives the key to the little problem. Fern, we're hearing about Fern again now?
Yeah.
It is Fern, Murad Ali Beg, Bishan Lal, and other wrecks all over again. Oh, okay, all over again.
Now, remember, all of them failed as chelas, and all of them had problems, moral, ethical, and or mental.
Why do would-be chelas with such intensely strong personalities force themselves into the enchanted and dangerous circle of probation?
And the one person he didn't mention is Hume. He was in the same position, but he was not even going to mention that name to Sinnett.
It might have ignited some new motivation in Sinnett if he had, though, maybe.
Who knows?
Right. Pardoning my short letter, I am very busy just now with the coming New Year.
So this is late summer of 1884. Remember, KH is the master of ceremonies for the Panchen Lama in Shigatse. So he apparently spends quite a bit of time each year in Shigatse. And then he also seems to have a residence somewhere in Ladakh, he and Moria. So whether or not Moria travels as much as he does, I don't know, but KH at least is kind of like Sinnett was, where he would spend time in Allahabad and in Shimla. KH spends time in Ladakh and in Shigatse every year. All these things that we put together from all of these little clues. It's kind of like being Sherlock Holmes here.
Let's go to Shigatse.
Okay.
Let's go absorb some energy.
Well, you'll absorb some Chinese government
Yeah.
energy, Chinese militia energy.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
that.
So there you go. We're a little bit farther along in this story. Very intense at this point, and it's going to get intenser.
Not funner, but intenser.
Yeah, the fun part is past, I'm afraid. It does become very intense, and as the Mahatmas say, everything is exactly as it should be. It couldn't be otherwise. So stick with us. So much to learn from these letters. Thank you again for following along and for being our faithful supporters in this endeavor.
Namaste.
Namaste.